Welcome to another episode of Barney and Buddy, the roofing guys. I have a special guest today, Joe McNeill. He's the bean counter extraordinaire from Westfield Bank. Welcome.
Bean counter extraordinaire.
Yeah, that's what a banker is, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so.
You know, count the beans and disperse it everywhere. So, what is your role at Westfield Bank?
I am the, other than the bean counter extraordinaire, I'm the Akron market leader, which is on the commercial side of the bank. So I'm in charge of the Akron market. I've got a team of 3 commercial bankers, 1 portfolio manager. And at Westfield we do things a little bit differently. So if you're a market leader, you're kind of a player coach. So you also have a book of business,
Right.
Which is the fun part of the job. So I'm glad that that's the way we have it structured.
I didn't know banking could be fun.
You know, when you have customers like you guys, of course.
Awesome. So, you call yourself a market leader. What is that? Explain to people what that. I mean, I don't even know what it is.
Yeah. So I'm responsible for the Akron market, which we call it Akron. Our office is in Fair Lawn, right behind Summit Mall. So
Okay.
It's really the suburbs of Akron. We don't have a lot of business in downtown Akron. A lot of the bigger banks are down there. We let them have that. But we are Fair Lawn, Wadsworth, Talmadge, Cuyahoga Falls, Stowe, all of that area. And we have relationships directly with the business owners. So Westfield Bank, we're a community bank, started in 2001, obviously owned by Westfield Insurance.
Yep, heard that.
And we started actually in a double wide trailer in a parking lot at Westfield Center. That was our first branch.
Really?
$0. And over the last 23 years, we've grown to $2.2 billion
Wow.
in assets. All really organic. Made a couple of small acquisitions, but otherwise just growing our base. And we don't bank any publicly traded companies, anything like that. We deal with owner-managed businesses, and that's really where we excel. We form really great personal relationships with those business owners, and in addition to helping them with their deposit solutions and lending them money when they need it, we also meet with our customers very frequently and really kind of take a consultative approach. So even if it's a decision that doesn't have anything to do with banking, we sit down, talk with them, help advise them where we can. That's the fun part.
Wow.
Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't.
Right. Well, shame on you if you don't listen, right?
That's right.
So, tell me a little bit about yourself. How long have you been in the banking industry?
So I started in banking in 2005, so I'm going on 20 years. Before that, my degree is actually in accounting. Worked in private accounting for an entrepreneur in downtown Akron while I was going to school at the University of Akron, and loved it. Loved working with numbers, but I sat in front of a computer all day long.
Yeah. Yep.
My phone never rang. If it did ring, it was my wife. And I just needed something where I had some more personal interaction. And looked into commercial banking, because no one ever says, when they're going to school, oh, I want to be a banker. That just never happens.
Right.
You just fall into it. And it seemed like a good mix of working with numbers and working with people. So went and put my resume out. A guy that I work with now at Westfield was at First Merit. He took a chance on me, and I was there for 10 years, and then came to Westfield in 2015.
Wow. That's cool. So you always talked about Westfield Bank, and it seems like is it a smaller entity, or do you have multiple branches? Or
Yeah, we are a little bit different than a traditional bank. When the bank was started, brick and mortar wasn't going to be our thing. We weren't going to build a ton of branches. The cost to do that is obviously high. So we always led with technology. So remote deposit capture, which most of our commercial customers use. Even commercial customers that are a mile from a branch, they like to use it. They scan the checks, it gets deposited for them. We do have 8 locations. as well as our operations center in Seville.
Wow. So smaller the better.
Yeah.
You know, the more you have the chance to get one-on-one with the customer, build that relationship, kind of like West Roofing does.
Yeah.
You know,
Very
relationships go far.
Big time.
Instead of, you know, the telemarketers and you know, press 1 to talk to somebody else, press 2, you know.
Yeah.
I'd want to pick up the phone and talk to you. I got a banking problem. Boom, you're done.
Some of the larger banks in our space, in the level of companies that we're calling on, those bankers will have anywhere from 100 to 200 customers.
Wow.
That's impossible to sit down and work with them through questions they may have, any issues they may have. Our bankers typically have anywhere from 30 to 35 customers, which gives them the time to spend that time and build that relationship with the customers.
Yeah, definitely need that.
Yeah.
So one of the other questions I have, what do you enjoy working with, or why do you like working with West Roofing? Besides money involved and transactions, you know, everybody needs a banker. You need to put your money somewhere. You need somebody you can trust. I mean, what do you like us about any other company?
I like, number one, the way that you guys do business. You kind of touched on it, the relationships that you form, and you guys have a lot of long-term relationships that they're not picking up the phone and calling 5 different companies to get numbers. They just call you guys because they know you're going to take care of the job. They know you're not going to take advantage of them. You're going to give them a fair price. So that part I love. Love all the business owners. All 4 of the guys are great. They actually, we've formed a really, really great relationship to the point where Brian and Chris, for some reason, think that there's a rule that I'm only allowed to say yes to them. And so far, I haven't broken that rule. I mean, clearly, I'm sitting here talking to you. That was one of the examples of I have to say yes. So
Yes, I have to come on to the show.
yeah, you know, I think there's just a lot of synergy with the way that we do business, the way that you guys do business. I think they enjoy that because it seems familiar with them. It's a comfortable relationship. They know that if they got bad news, they can tell me bad news. If they got good news, they want to share the good news. It's just become a really, really good relationship because neither one of us looks at it as an opportunity to make money on each other. It's more an opportunity of, it's a true relationship. We're partners. This isn't, you know, the bank that just sits there and says yes or no and you know, lends the money or waives the fees. They understand it's a relationship. Both of us are in this together, and we're going to help where we can, and they'll do the same way. Same thing.
Awesome. Yeah, I know how they do pressure. You know, they pressure me every day.
Nice.
They pressure me to do this all the time.
They think they're so tough.
Yeah.
I can't wait till they watch this.
Yeah, I know their weaknesses. If you need one, I'll let you know.
I'll be calling you.
All right. Kind of more on a different status here. How are current economic trends, like interest rates, inflation, and how are they affecting like commercial contractors like us and others, and even small businesses? I mean, you know, we're coming into a new fiscal year.
Yep.
You know, everybody's worried. You know, the new president.
Sure.
What can we? I mean, what should roofing company like us or small businesses? What should we keep in mind for the next upcoming year? I mean, forecasted.
Sure. You know, the last few years have been tough on small business contractors, manufacturing, distribution, even retail, because costs have they just keep increasing and increasing, and you get to a point where you just can't pass them on anymore.
Right.
And so we've seen over the last couple of years margins being compressed because materials and direct labor have gotten really expensive, and like I said, you can't pass them on any longer. So banks have had to recognize that that's what we're going to see from customers. Going forward, I think we're going to see some relief on the interest rate side of the equation. The one caveat to that, the one big unknown, and the reason why when you read things, they don't really know how to forecast where rates are going to go, is because of the new administration. Obviously, President Trump has been very vocal about his desire to grow, grow GDP, grow the economy, really get things moving. There's a cost to doing that, and it can translate, if that growth is funded by government spending, it could translate to higher inflation, which then means rates aren't going to come down. We don't think we're going to see that. We think there's going to be an aggressive cut to government spending. It's been a very public thing that he's talked about doing.
Right.
If that can happen, I mean, inflation is driven by, the number one thing inflation is driven by is government spending. So if they can truly cut costs and reinvest in American small businesses, then I think we're going to see a scenario where interest rates will continue to come down and businesses will continue to reinvest in themselves, and that can really churn the economy in a big way.
Right. I mean, that affects not only us, but it affects our customers. You know, that, hey, I need to get a roof done next year, and, you know, I don't know if I can afford it, you know, because like you said, interest rates, even down to, you know, old roofer like me trying to, you know, have my house and my interest rate sky high, you know, it affects everybody right down to the bottom line.
It does. I mean, the average homeowner is, they're stuck where they're at right now if they've done a mortgage in the last 5 to 7 years, because if they do want to move, they're giving up a 2.75, 3% interest rate to go to 6.5, 7.
All right, we gotta get off that.
Yeah, I know.
Now you're getting me all
It's bad.
bothered.
You get all.
Yeah, you know, because what they pay me, you know, I'm on the lower end of the, you know, pay scale. So.
You just need to tell them they always have to tell you yes. That's what they tell me.
Right. No, they said, well, we'll get back to you. Well, hey, I appreciate that one. That's a good one. Here's the thing in your type of field, you know, I don't know much about banking. You know, I give my money to the bank and, you know, I get it back out really quick because, you know, bills are
That's
everywhere. Right. How do you stay updated with the latest developments in your line of work? Everything changes drastically, I'm sure. Like you're saying, interest rates, this rate, that rate. You know, how do you keep up with all that? I mean, I know it's, you know, periodically every end of the month it changes.
Yep.
I mean, how do you guys keep up with that? I mean, that's like us trying to keep up with a schedule when we got 7 days of rain.
Yeah.
You know,
it's probably the most difficult thing that any bank has to be concerned about. And you know, a lot of people don't know this. Every bank has this. It's called ALCO. It stands for Asset Liabilities Committee. So liabilities for us are your deposits. Our assets are the loans that we have out. We have to constantly look at how much it's costing us to pay on deposits versus what we can bring in on the loan side. Where banks can get stuck is if they're a really large mortgage bank and they don't sell those mortgages, and so they have mortgages on their books at 3%,
right.
But on their savings accounts they're paying 5% because they have to get the money. It's the hardest thing. It's deposits are banks' raw materials. That's our raw material.
Now you're talking my terms.
Exactly.
I like that. You're not talking like a doctor. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So deposits are our raw material. So just as your material costs go up, but you're locked into a maintenance contract or a contract that was signed that you don't have escalators in, a bank goes through that exact same thing. It would be like us making a loan that we fix the rate, we can't change that rate, and our raw material costs keep going up. We get squished just like you guys get squished. And the last 2 years for banks has been extremely difficult. And as we go through this unknown period of what are rates going to do with the new administration,
Exactly.
That's where banks are trying to figure out, okay, what can we lend money for, and what are we going to have to pay for our raw materials? So it's not any different than any other business. It's just our materials are different than yours.
Right. Well, I mean, speaking of that, I mean, what do you believe sets your industry apart from others?
The amount of regulation. You know, we'll talk to customers and they'll have a request to loan money a certain amount, a certain structure, a certain amount of time, certain loan to value on the collateral. We're governed by, every bank has a regulator. Ours is the OCC. We have to conform to whatever those regulations are, and banks get routine audits by those government regulators.
Now, do you agree with them sometimes when they come out?
No
Because
comment.
you're the one that has to deal with it.
It's tough. It's really, really tough. And when they're reacting to what they believe the economy is going to do, and they're looking at our loan portfolio, our opinions are not always the same. But we're held to those regulatory agencies. So
Right.
that really is, and I know there are other industries that are regulated. They probably experience the same thing. From our perspective, what makes banking different than a lot of other industries is we're only allowed to do so much
Right.
without getting in trouble.
Gotcha. Yeah, you definitely don't want to get in trouble because
No.
you'll be on,
It's not fun.
6 o'clock news.
That's right.
That's not fun. Are you aware of what we do here at West Roofing?
I am.
Explain it to me. See how much you
Well,
know.
so here's what I do know about West Roofing, and this is my favorite story about this company. Is, yes, do you guys have standard repair work that you do, or a new roof that you put on with foam roofing, typically flat roofs? You guys can do that. But my favorite story I've ever heard about this company that shows what you guys do in terms of willing to find a solution is when you went over to Iraq. I think the pictures, yeah,
Right
right there. That,
Sorry, flashback.
no, that to me just blows my mind that somebody came up with the idea of, hey, we could probably help the cooling systems in these tents, glorified tents, but that our soldiers are staying in, if we insulated the outside of them with the product that we use on roofs. And the fact that you took people over there, that you were over there away from your families for as long as you were, that you flew equipment over there. I mean, that story to me is just mind-blowing.
Yeah, I mean, it was a heck of an experience. I mean, I did.
Did you go?
Yeah, I did the first stint of it. And, it just like you said, you're away from your family.
We got a 1 minute warning, boss.
Oh, thanks.
Wow, we're getting
All right, this is interesting.
The camera's gonna go off.
Well, long story short, like you said, we were away from our families, but, we were side by side, elbow to elbow with the military. And, I always respected the military, but once I went out there, I truly, truly respected them, because I'm in the middle of a war.
Yeah.
And, these people are doing this every day, risking their lives. And I think that was the biggest part of helping them out to make them more feel better and comfortable, because like they said, the reason why we did that is because the air conditioners were in these tents were constantly going because the temperatures were so high over
Yeah.
there that they couldn't keep up with the diesel demand. So we come in there and we sprayed them, and eventually it came down to where they were down to minimal usage on the air conditioners, and made their world a lot better.
That's the coolest story. So to sum it up, what I would say is, yes, I know what West Roofing does, but if anybody asks me what West Roofing does, you guys come up with solutions. That's the difference between you guys and somebody that they call and just get a bid to fix their roof or do whatever.
Right.
You guys don't look at everything the exact same way.
No, I mean, same thing with you.
Yep.
You gotta look at the way that it benefits West Roofing and the ownership,
100%.
So they can have their big boats and, all that stuff,
That's right. Go hunting.
Yep, and I'm here working.
Hey, me too.
So, to close this thing out, as me as a roofing guy, what kind of advice do you have for me as an individual, you being a banker? What do I look out for next year, interest rates, stuff like that? Anybody like me in this company, us guys below the
Sure.
ownership, what do we look at next year for us to help us gain a little more, because everything's so expensive.
Everything is expensive.
The 401ks are not going to where you want to,
Yeah, so I think what I would do what I would say to you as an individual is, if you do have money that you can quote unquote lock up for even 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, I'd start watching where this interest rate environment is going to go. I honestly believe it's going to go down. The bank is forecasting them to go down. So January, February, March, first quarter of the year, maybe after you guys get bonuses or whatever, I'm assuming you get those. You should. If you don't, they need to watch this. But if you get them, look for as long a term CD as you can lock money away for at the highest rate, because that rate then is going to be locked in for as long as the CD is, and even as rates come down, you're going to be able to make top of market on those rates.
Well, I appreciate it. That's good advice. I think we're running out of time.
I think we are too.
I appreciate it, Joe.
Good
And
to see you again, Barney.
thank you, everybody. This is Joe, and he's from Westfield Bank. Appreciate you tuning in. Thank you.